Home is supposed to be safe. Home is supposed to protect. Home is supposed to love. But that's not always the case. Many homes all over Calgary, homes of different colors, sizes, in different neighborhoods, are home to domestic violence. Prior to HomeFront, Calgary's response to domestic violence operated with individual systems and agencies working in isolation, leaving many victims to fall through the cracks.
I think whether people are aware of it or not, I think a lot of people don't admit to it, and I think what goes on behind closed doors still stays behind closed doors because there's so much going on in everybody's life. Unless some horrific, traumatic event happens to make you open your eyes, I don't think you want to admit to it, and I think you just kind of close your eyes to it or turn the other way.
Domestic violence is one of the largest unseen problems that exists in not only Calgary, but in society today.
What can we do as a community or as a society to prevent it? And I think we're still learning. I think that we know a lot more than we did 10 years ago and 20 years ago, but I don't think we know all the answers yet.
78% of instances of abuse and violence go unreported in Canada.
I had a good job, I made good money, I owned my own house. Everything seems to be good, but it happened to me. So I think people have to realize that, you know, that can happen to anybody at any time.
It starts to happen, it's subtle, with name calling and maybe put downs and a bit of shoving, and most of the time it progresses across a continuum, but sometimes it can escalate very quickly from kind of name calling to severe abuse.
I think it's just the human dynamic that you're talking about. A lot of victims who still are in love with the offender and will just, they'll be willing to say, you know, do anything in the hopes that, yes, it won't happen again, but largely sometimes that's a fiction.
You know, the night prior to the assault, that was, you know, we broke up, got together, broke up, got back together, broke up, got back together, and then he started accusing me of things that I didn't do, and it's just bad, and it's like, you know what, we can't. There was another breakup at that point, and so that was the night that he assaulted me. He never physically assaulted me prior to the night of July 28th, but the night of July 28th, it was extreme. Like, it wasn't even just a push or a shove. It was strangled 3 times, and, you know, once with his hand down my throat. And I remember after that, it was like, okay, I know now. That was like, okay, I got to get out of this relationship. You know, I have to do whatever I need to do in order to make my son and me safe, because this man definitely needs some sort of help.
Alberta has the highest rate of reported spousal assault in Canada.
12,000 calls a year. It's about 1,000 calls a month. Those are the ones we get. We know we don't get them all. So we can go in there. Police officers can respond 24/7, but they can't devote the time and effort that's required to effectively deal with the problems in that home between those people.
If you were to put all of the domestic violence trials and prosecutions into you know, specific courtrooms, you would probably be able to fill on a daily basis 3 of those courts.
We had one agency to refer offenders to for domestic violence, and the wait lists were so long that offenders weren't generally getting into counseling till near the expiry of their order. And we know, and research has shown us, that we have to be proactive and we need to get them into counseling quickly.
It was November 29th. He had my son on an unsupervised visit, and I guess he took him up to Camrose. and was to have him returned on December 1st. And 5 minutes before he was supposed to have him returned, he called me and said that he couldn't do it anymore and that somebody would have to pick him up. And he hung up. At that point, that's when I called the police. I thought, oh my God, this is it again. And it ended up that on December 1st, he had murdered my son and committed suicide.
Over half of Calgarians say they know someone who has been a victim of domestic violence.
Our collective community collaborative response is miles and miles and miles ahead of where it was 10 years ago and is in the direction that it needs to be.
HomeFront is a tremendous collaborative effort by some very dedicated citizens in the Calgary area that has had tremendous results.
The purpose of HomeFront is to really develop a coordinated community response to domestic violence. I think what makes us really unique is the partnerships and the interest in sharing of information across services.
And the partnership we have with HomeFront is something that you cannot overvalue. It is, I think, the #1 most important partnership that we have, and I say that in all honesty because it is, in essence, they are our homicide prevention unit. Their intervention saves lives, it saves families, it saves people. There's nothing more important than that partnership.
I think it's because of the swiftness of the system, our focus on getting support for the victim and getting the offender into treatment, and our focus on healing the family. And that has created the difference.
I don't lay blame and I don't want to point fingers. I want to be able to pull together and be able to address this and hopefully be able to prevent something like this happening to anybody else.
Domestic violence is something that we've made huge inroads against over the last few years, and it's going to be one of those things that we are going to continue to have a huge impact on. It's going to be something that, with HomeFront and the police working together, the multi-agency approach, we're going to make the problem disappear.
I truly believe that HomeFront's the model that people need to be looking at. It works. We've gone through a number of years of change within our justice system with how we do business, with the collaboration, and the HomeFront model is the model that's working.
We provide victim services directly through our casework staff. We also supervise and manage provincial funding that allows for mandated treatment for offenders coming out of our domestic violence court. This support's at the right time, in the right place, and at the right level. And when we do that well, we make positive change for these folks.
HomeFront is measurably making a difference in the lives of men, women, and children in this community by reducing these families' vulnerability to violence now and for the future.
It used to be viewed that what happens behind closed doors is a family matter, it's family business. The reality is, no way. People are way more attuned to it now. What was acceptable behavior even 15, 20 years ago in families, 10 years ago, it's not anymore. And people know it's not. The long term, I think it's going to be one of those things that will eventually just not be the social problem that it is today. It's just not acceptable.